It's a good time if you're in the market for a seven-seater car. Brands have been bringing out some really stylish options. Things like the new Hyundai Santa Fe, which if you want to watch that review, I'll pop it up there somewhere on the screen. That has taken what used to be quite a bland offering and offered something which is much more interesting. And then we also have cars like the Volvo XC90, which is such a fantastic, solid, all-round seven-seat family car. And once again, I've done a review of that very recently. So if you want to watch that video, I'll pop it up on the screen. But Mazda finally decided that they wanted a slice of the pie. This is their latest addition to the Mazda lineup. This is going to be their largest car for the UK and Europe. This is the Mazda CX-80, a 7 and 6 seat car. And this is the latest Mazda to be released here in the UK. So if you want to find out whether the Mazda CX-80 is just as good of a 7-seat option as cars like the Volvo XC90, then you might want to watch today's video. Hi guys, I'm Tish and welcome back to my channel Auto Social UK. In today's video, I'll tell you everything there is to know about the new Mazda CX-80. So if that sounds good, then please keep watching. And if you do like new car reviews and car content, well, you're in the right place. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. So there's quite an interesting thing when it comes to Mazda and something which I really like about the brand, and that's that they're actually going against the grain when it comes to their engine options. Nowadays, you usually have an electric offering like the EX90, or you have a hybrid offering like the XC90. But when it comes to Mazda, they're still going hybrid. You've got a plug-in hybrid, but the engines that go alongside the hybrids are a little bit more interesting. You see, there's two options of hybrids. You have a standard hybrid, but that's actually paired together with a 3.3 litre straight diesel. And then there's also the petrol plug-in hybrid, and that gets a 2.5 litre petrol. So a little bit different from the offerings out there, but Mazda say that they've developed their engines to still be as economical, if not even more economical than other brands on the market. So we're going to be putting that to the test. But let's start by talking about design. And I really quite like the design of the new CX-80. In fact, I like designs from Mazda overall. I think they're quite simple but impactful and also timeless. In fact, they've not moved that much from their existing styling pretty much in about 10-15 years, and that means that the cars stay timeless. They still look current even as they get older, and I think that's a really good thing. It means that when you have a family car like this, it's a family car that's going to last you the test of time. This is a new colour for the CX-80. This is melting copper. What do you think about it? I actually quite like it in this Hamura trim. So you've got the contrasting gloss black grille, and also you've got the contrasting gloss black wheels as well, and that contrast helps. But I think it's going to be a little bit indecisive as to whether people like it. So let me know, what do you think of the melting copper down below. If you're not a fan of melting copper, then they also have another new colour for the CX-80, and that is your artisan red. And this looks really special actually. It's a deep dark red, almost a burgundy, and it looks really executive, especially with the higher spec trims with those contrasting chrome elements. That mix of colours actually looks really smart and I quite like it. You've got the headlamps here, which are just dipped into the bodywork, and you've got the little headlight washers here just down below, hidden away. You've also got this daytime running light, which runs along the centre of the gloss black part of the grille, and then you actually have that mirrored in these little elements here at the bottom of the car. It's very cohesive, but as I said, it's quite a simple design, but I think it works very well. This is a big car, and with a big car, you don't want to go too over the top as it can look busy. So I think they've done a very good job, but it's the interiors of Mazdas which are always my favourite. Now, it will probably come as no surprise to you that the interior of the CX-80 is very similar to that of the CX-60, and that's no bad thing. It means that the brand takes that Japanese craftsmanship and just fills the cabin with so much loveliness. It's so high quality in here, but there's also so many touch points and buttons. It's so user-friendly. Mazda refuses to move with the times, and that has actually worked to their advantage. Whilst everyone was stripping away all of the buttons, Mazda kept their buttons and also kept their scroller for controlling the touchscreen. Of course, this, sitting here in the middle of the dashboard, is one of the most interesting things about Mazda cars, because this screen tucked within all of this leather is not actually a touchscreen. Well, not all the time anyway. When you are using certain things like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which have been set up to be used with a touchscreen, it does become touch sensitive. But most of the time, it's controlled via this scroller in the center console. And that means that finding settings and radio stations is really easy when you're driving without you having to take your eyes off of the road, which I know so many people will think makes a lot more sense than a lot of these systems that we're finding nowadays with hundreds of touchscreens. Inside of this Hamura trim, a lot of it is trimmed in leather. Now, this looks fantastic. As I said, contrasting with that copper paintwork on the outside, you've got the copper brown elements down the centre, and you've also got the contrast stitching on these lovely dark black leather seats. But this interior to me is not what Mazda does best. What Mazda does best is their Japanese craftsmanship, and that comes to their cloth interiors. Or when I say cloth, I'm talking about they put these lovely materials across the dashboard in their other specification cars, which I'll include, and they just feel very, very special. This to me feels very high quality, but I feel like if you want something that's a bit different from what else is out there, then if you go for those different interior options, it means you're getting something which is very, very special to Mazda. The layout is fantastic. It's just so intuitive. Everything's exactly where you need it. You've got lots of buttons on the steering wheel. You've got your right hand side for your adaptive cruise control, left hand side for controlling your volume and your phone. You've also got some buttons down the right hand side of the steering wheel, and this includes a button to turn off your traffic sign recognition bongs. Fantastic, I know. There's a physical button to literally click it once and you can turn it off if that's what you choose. Of course, if you like your safety systems, then you can keep them all on. And of course, this is packed with all the latest safety systems, and I'll run through those when I drive it. Storage is also pretty good. So you've got a wireless charging pad, which is just up the back there. You have a couple of cup holders, which are covered by this nice piece of wood effect. You've got your controls for your infotainment system, and then also you have this split folding armrest, and then you've got a little bit of storage inside of the armrest. I'll be honest, there could be more storage for a family car. This doesn't go particularly deep, and there's no access to the rear like you get in something from the Santa Fe. There is a bit more storage in the Santa Fe, but then this feels a little bit more plush. So it just depends on what you're after. You do also have a glove box, which is a large full-size glove box, so that is certainly a plus. So that's everything that's going on with the front of the Mazda CX-80, but of course, with this being their first 7-seater car, it's very important about what's going on in the rear. The majority of the time, Mazda's squashy plush interiors definitely work to their benefit. Take, for instance, in the back, you've got these really soft, squashy leather seats which hug you and feel so very comfortable. You also have the ability to lay these back as well, or have them upright, and that means you can have quite a relaxed feel in the back here. But because they are so squashy, that does sometimes mean that it's impeding in the space a little bit. They could have space saved and they could have cut down these seats and made them not quite so comfortable, but I think that's what makes Mazda special. But you do still have a decent amount of legroom. I've got a really good amount of headroom despite this car having the panoramic sunroof. I've got amenities like a pull-out armrest with a couple of cup holders. I've also got tri-zone climate control in the back here, so that feels very luxury. And I've got 2 USB-C charge ports. I've got pockets on the backs of the seats. I've got storage inside of the doors, and then as you can see, I've also got the child blinds as well. There's also little pull-out hooks that you can use, and you have the standard hooks there and lights in the back. It's all very, very good. It doesn't feel above and beyond, so I would have liked to have seen little gadgets like you have in the Santa Fe, where you can access that rear area of storage, or perhaps maybe a few more cup holders. But overall, I think it's extremely good. And where Mazda does so well is certainly in its comfort, because these seats are so comfortable. But what about in the third row? Well, for starters, getting into the third row is made easier by the fact these doors open so wide. So Mazda's rear doors open at a 90-degree angle, and that means kind of moving things around is quite simple. Then you have the hook on the back of the seat, and you also have one further down as well, so you can either slide it forwards or you can also lay it flat. Once brought forward, it's actually quite easy to clamber in. Of course, I have had to move these seats forward so you can see me in the back here, because otherwise it would be a little bit cramped. But if I bring this seat back, you'll be able to see how much legroom I have. So, there you go. If I bring that back, that, of course, is moved in its forward position, so it's not all the way back. So as long as you've got smaller people sitting in the middle row, then actually even taller people are quite comfortable in the back. I've got a good amount of legroom. I've got a good amount of headroom as well. And what I'm really impressed about is I've not only got 2 further cup holders on each side, I've also got third row ventilation, although it can't be controlled. You've simply got these vents that you can open and close. But I've also got 2 USB-C charging ports in the back here as well. It feels like quite a nice place to spend time. Of course, it's not huge in the back here, and there are bigger 7-seat cars on offer, especially if you go for something like a minivan. But if you wanted a car which you can customise the amount of boot space and also have that third row space just in case, I think this makes a really good option. And it's also still quite comfortable. Okay, so that's the third row, but I think it's important at this point that we now talk about boot space. So when it comes to boot space, it's not best in class, but it's not worst in class either. The positives are every version of the CX-80 does get an electric boot, and you also, on some versions, can get the kick boot, which I think is super handy for a car of this size, because let's face it, if you've got more than 3 kids, then you're going to have your hands full at all times. So to be able to keep the key in your pocket and kick to open the boot, I think it's great. Also, the key to getting that to work is, as you saw, I kicked under the boot and then I stepped away. You need to give the boot enough space to be able to open. So, once inside, as I said, it's not great, but it's also not bad. With all 7 seats in place, you will find 558 litres of boot space. That's 7 litres more than I get in my Volkswagen Up. So it's about the equivalent to a city car. Not huge amounts, but then again, I'm always surprised how much I can fit in my Up. I can fit a weekly shop. I can also get a small suitcase and a big suitcase. Of course, you have to move things around, but you can make it work. So what about with the rear seats down? Well, pull on the tabs and you can pop those seats down, and then that actually extends to 566 litres. Now that is much, much better, and you'll be able to fit your weekly holiday in there after that. What I do love about this car is if you go for the plug-in hybrid, there is so many charging options. So you actually have a 12-volt charger, but you've got a 3-pin charger on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side as well. So that means if you're going camping, it's really, really handy to be able to plug things in to those 3-pin chargers, or even just laptops on long journeys. You've also got some storage underneath the boot, which I really appreciate, because you've got dedicated areas for your charging cables and also dedicated areas for your retractable parcel shelf as well. I just think it's quite a handy storage space, and it's been thought out well, just like the rest of the cabin. So that is all of the space in the CX-80 covered. So why don't I jump in and take it for a drive? Mazda's 3.3-litre straight-six mild hybrid diesel engine debuted in the CX-60. The Japanese manufacturer takes a distinctive stance on engine design, favouring larger capacity engines and focusing on their thermal efficiency instead of downsizing. Consequently, this engine has nearly the double capacity of many competitors, making it quite unique in today's market. It delivers 251 brake horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque, and that allows it to do the 0 to 62 mph sprint in 8.4 seconds. Mazda claims that it can actually achieve nearly 50 miles per gallon, a figure that should actually be attainable during steady, longer journeys. Whilst the car that I'm driving here is the plug-in, I did drive the diesel, and it's arguably the nicer car to drive. Without the battery, it's slightly lighter, and that aids to the experience. Whilst there's a pleasing engine note and no whining as it switches from combustion to electric like the plug-in. As I mentioned, when it comes to the plug-in hybrid, it's made up of a combination of a 2.5 litre petrol engine, and then you also have an electric motor which has 178 brake horsepower, and that's powered by a 17.8 kilowatt-hour battery. And together with both the engine and the electric battery, that gives you a combination of just under 350 brake horsepower. So it's a pretty powerful car, paired together with 500 pound-feet of torque. And together that gives you a 0 to 62 time of around 8 seconds or just under, which I think is quite impressive for a vehicle which weighs nearly 2 tonnes. The good thing about Mazda cars is they're always focused on building them for keener drivers. So they're always driver focused when it comes to how you experience the drives. That means that sometimes the suspension is a little bit too rough if you're having this as a family car and you're not really bothered about how it drives. If you are just wanting the mundane A to B driving experience, then maybe something softer in this class would be better for everybody to experience. But if you do want a car which is still good to drive, then the Mazda CX-80 does do that well. But just remember, it can be slightly bumpy at times, and even smaller bumps can sometimes send shudders throughout the cabin. But overall, I actually think it's pretty good. I've done a lot of driving in the CX-60, and that has a similar setup, and I haven't really found it to be too much of an issue, not for my personal preference anyway. But if you are comparing it to something like a Citroen, which has a much softer suspension setup, then you're probably going to notice quite a bit of difference. Impressively, both engines, the plug-in hybrid and also the diesel, support a maximum towing capacity of 2.5 tonnes. That means if you're looking for a plug-in hybrid that can tow, the CX-80 is a much better tow car than the Hyundai Santa Fe and the Kia Sorento, which are limited to just 1.1 tonne. One area where the bigger engines can really flex their muscles. The Mazda can also be equipped with a trailer hitch view and semi-electric tow bar. The trailer hitch view is a rear-facing camera that helps the driver align the car and trailer, and the semi-electric tow bar is hidden until activated via a button in the boot. The CX-80 has a number of safety features, including autonomous emergency braking, lane departure warning, and blind spot monitoring. In fact, Euro NCAP gave the CX-80 a 5-star safety rating and named it Best in Class Large SUV. The smaller Mazda CX-60 was a pretty unshakable, faultless family car. If a little bit rough in its ride at times, it offered interior quality and a stylish exterior which matches together with all of the equipment that you could possibly need. The Mazda CX-80 simply takes everything that's great about the 60 and adds a couple of seats. What's there not to love? I know that diesel engine can be fantastic, especially on those longer runs. In fact, I spent 3 days with the Mazda CX-60 driving across Morocco, and it's such a brilliant engine for those types of jobs. But let me know, what do you think of the new Mazda CX-80? Has it moved to the top of the list for your next 7-seat family car? If not, let me know what's at the top. Pop it in the comments down below. I really hope you have enjoyed this video today, guys. If you have, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. And if you want to see more, then make sure you hit that subscribe button. Until next time, guys, see you later.